All right. Hey guys. Anyhow, yeah. Okay. My battery's low, but it is charging. Should be charging. I don't have a lot of time. I have to be to work in an hour. That means I have to leave in 30 minutes. And so this is kind of like a hot take. I don't have time to do in-depth, videos on anything because I'm a slave. And so, anybody in my situation, we have to leave all the in-depth coverage to all these people that aren't slaves, that they have the time and resources and energy and all this to actually do in-depth coverage on things, right? On issues and this and that, right? And, but then they're all shills. All these people that have the time and energy and resources and everything to do actual in-depth coverage on stuff, well, they do in-depth coverage on things that are going to draw in the most, revenue through clicks, likes, views, subs, etc., ratings. This is why I keep ranting on and on about how the internet is no different than mainstream media. And so, and I mean, doing an in-depth coverage on how the internet is no different than mainstream media. Like, who's doing that? Nobody. Because everybody's grifting and shilling on the internet. And so it's all fake news. It's all fake news. So let's get into the story of this black guy with the long dreads wearing the red hoodie who stabbed that fucking frail little Ukrainian girl who came to the United States of America to escape, as refuge from the big so-called war going on in Ukraine and Russia. And that little girl, that little frail, skinny girl, looks like she fucking hasn't eaten a sandwich in a couple years, and the big black dude stabs her because he's so strong and brave and courageous and, a stunningly brave, display of, that's how you get, that's how you get whitey, right? That's how I watched Black Scout Survival, and for what it's worth, he covered it. It's been the hot thing, okay. And if you pay attention to the story of this big black dude with the long dreads and the red hoodie who stabs the fucking little frail, skinny little girl on the train, if you watch like the coverage, so-called coverage, one of the aspects of this story of the this black guy is that he's homeless or houseless, as they say. So you see that, and that being an aspect of the story is a great opportunity for people on any and all sides. When you talk about all these different warring factions, Republicans versus Democrats, fascists versus communists, black versus white, all this shit. When the homeless or houseless homeless aspect of that story comes into play, it is a great opportunity for all these liars, grifters, and to use the homeless aspect of that story to conflate. For example, the mayor of that city saw that homeless houses thing as an opportunity to conflate and to confuse this whole story by going into talking about how the injustice of the homeless and the unhoused and stuff. You see, you don't, and if you're not, see, I am hyper vigilant when it comes to the subject of homelessness, whereas the vast majority of all you people, you have been so brainwashed that you don't even pay any attention to the homeless thing at all. And to me, it's hilarious because it is like so fucking insanely like, holy fuck. And you guys, I just cannot believe the level of brainwash, the amount of NPCs that populate our world is like, it's like clone world. This is like clone world. You have masses of just NPC brain dead. They think what they're told to think, And so anyways, so the mayor saw, the aspect of this story that this black guy is supposedly homeless. Like, the dude don't look homeless to me. He don't look homeless at all to me. But whatever. You see, that's another thing. The whole subject of homeless gets completely conflated. And so this subject of homelessness is so vast, which is another thing that's so shocking about how people just don't ever talk about it at all. And then a big story like this comes up, and part of the story is, well, that guy that stabbed that innocent girl, he was homeless, right? Well, first of all, what does that word even mean? Do any of you even know what that word means? They circulate this word homeless all over the place. But do you even know what it means? Like, am I homeless? I'm staying in this motel. Am I homeless? Like, what does it even mean? And so, anyways, and so this liberal mayor, the Democrat liberal mayor, starts to, use the homeless aspect of this story to conflate and confuse, and goes into this subtle, subtle kind of thing about discussing the seriousness of unhoused people and stuff, and how, the Democrats and liberals have always cared so much about the homeless housing. Dude, again, I worked in the homeless service provider field in the most liberal fucking state in this country for 10 years. Dude, these people hate the homeless more than conservatives do. And see, the other thing about it is the conservatives are so stupid that the conservatives believe that the liberal Democrats actually are they have some invested like energy into the homeless housing. Like, the whole thing is just this big, massive clusterfuck of confusion, and homeless. Dude, the homeless part of stuff, they use it so much to just further confuse and conflate. And so again, like, I don't have time to do in-depth coverage on this because, like, I got to be to work and I got to leave in 20 minutes. I still got to take a shit and fucking, grease up my hair and brush my teeth and all this stuff. But like, dude, it's like, I just can't believe, it's mind blowing. And then it's like, for example, people want to talk about the World Economic Forum and stuff, you're going to live in pods, you will own nothing and be happy. And, Darth Vader, fucking Klaus Schwab and all this stuff. Dude, if you guys really were paying attention to the World Economic Forum agenda and stuff, all you have to do is take a look. They have like the 12 or 13 main points of their World Economic Forum agenda. And the number one, they have it like in a fucking like a document, and it's circulated all throughout the internet. It isn't a secret at all. And when you look, there's 12 things. or 13. And the number one at the very top is poverty. That should tell you something, dude. That should tell you the World Economic Forum is using poverty as their number one like tool in order to roll out their agenda is poverty. They're going to address poverty. See, that's because these people in power, these people in power that control the narrative, they're intentionally obfuscating poverty so that people are never talking about it, because the people whose intention is to roll out the World Economic Forum agenda, they know that poverty is the number one thing that they're going to be able to use to manipulate reality in order to roll out the pod agenda. And so that's why they make sure that nobody's ever talking about poverty and homelessness and all this stuff. And that's why, they're going to talk about Palestine. And then when poverty is the thing, they'll conflate it with race. They're always conflating race with class, race and class. Like if you start to bring up an issue about poverty and stuff, well, then they inject the race thing. Well, the Jews are the richest and the blacks are the poorest. So they always inject race into so the subject of class can never be like a focal point, because anytime the subject of class, this massive pyramid class system where you have the ruling class up at the top and then everybody else down below, whenever that gets any focus goes on that, all of a sudden you have all these people screaming about how it's the Jews are the ruling class, and it's the blacks that are suffering, they're the poorest, And you see, it's all just total insanity. You can't have just a real conversation about class, and that's what you got, all these agitators and all these agent provocateurs and rabble rousers, that if you start to talk about the class pyramid, this big pyramid, and the ruling class up at the top, all the agent provocateurs and the useful idiots and the CIA stooges and all the rabble rousers and all these agents and all this clusterfuck, they come in and start force injecting race into the class issue, where it's the Jews, the Jews, right? And it's the blacks that they're the ones that are suffering the most, and it's the Jews that are the ones that are up at the top. And you see how they just injecting like a vaccine injection, like an mRNA forced injection in any time you try to talk about the class, and because that's what it is. It's class. That's what it is. And that's why they don't want anybody talking about it, because they know that that's what it is. And so all of this, where they're force injecting the race issue into everything, is because they don't want people talking about the class issue. The ruling class up at the top. Well, it's the Jews. No, it's not. No, it's not. That's ridiculous, because you could see all kinds of filthy fucking rich people that are black, filthy rich people that are fucking white, filthy rich people that are Chinese, filthy rich people that are, and Jim Rizzoli himself said it in a comment yesterday to me. He put a comment that said it all comes down to the haves and the have-nots. Exactly. It all comes down to the haves and the have-nots. That's what this is all about. That's why they're constantly force injecting race whenever the topic of the haves versus the have-nots come up. All of a sudden, instantly, it's force injected like a fucking mRNA vaccine, force injected with race. The Jews, the blacks. It's everybody's doing it. Nobody's gonna just stop and focus on the class thing. They're always going to force inject race into every fucking thing. And so, look, Jim Rizzoli was right in that comment. Now, he won't say that. He isn't going to go into depth on it all comes down to the haves and the have-nots, because that's gonna start to confuse it's the Jews narrative. Because when you start looking at, well, who are the haves and the have-nots? Well, most of the haves, they're not even in the public eye. So it's very easy to speculate, you know. But if you look at the haves that are in the public eye, like I said, you got filthy rich Jews, you got filthy rich whites, you got filthy rich blacks, you got filthy rich Asians, you got filthy rich fucking people from India, you know. And like, if you were to do an aggregate, where are all the most heinous crimes coming from? So you have, let's break it down like this. You know, the word homeless or the word unhoused. Let's, for a joke, let's go with the word unhoused, okay? Now let's look at a crime aggregate. The most heinous, most fucked up crimes, are they coming from the unhoused or the housed? If you want to do, let's break this off into a warring faction, the housed versus the unhoused. And let's look at who is more guilty of the most heinous crimes, the housed or the unhoused? Who is more guilty? So where's the pedophile islands coming from? Where's these Epstein Islands and P. Diddy parties coming from? The unhoused or the housed? Oh, the housed. What about what about the genocide in so-called genocide in Gaza, and who is killing all these fucking Palestinians? The housed or the unhoused? The housed. You know, when you start looking at it like this, let's do a crime aggregate. Where are the most heinous of all crimes coming from? All these child sex trafficking rings alleged, like the Epstein Island and the freak off parties, are these unhoused people or housed people? They're housed. All the worst, most heinous crimes you could possibly imagine. And you were to look at it in that sense, the housed or the unhoused, who's the ones that are committing all this sick, insane shit? The housed or the unhoused? It's the housed. Always the housed. The unhoused, they don't have the luxury to, orchestrate Epstein Islands and coordinate P. Diddy freak off party. They're just struggling just to survive from one day to the next. So murders, let's look at murders. Well, what's the age-old, adage? If you kill a man, you're a murderer. If you kill many, you're a conqueror. If you kill them all, you're a god. So when the government sends the military out to kill hundreds of thousands of people, well, that's all justified. But if somebody goes and kills one person, well, that's murder. That's a no-no, And the justice system needs to get involved, and we need to make a big deal out of it. Who is killing the most people, the housed or the unhoused? The housed. Who is committing more murders, the housed or the unhoused? The housed. Who is doing more child sex trafficking, the housed or the unhoused? The housed. Go down the list. So then why is it that there's all of this ignorance and hatred directed at the unhoused? And there's all of this accolades of praise and adoration towards the housed, when it's the housed that are the ones that are committing all the most heinous crimes in the world, not the unhoused. Dude, yes, look, Jim Rizzoli was correct in his statement that it all comes down to the haves and the have-nots. Well, and if that's the case, then what's all this talk about Jewish space lasers? What's all this talk about interdimensional beings? What's all this talk about, everybody dropping like flies from the vax, or any of these other hot, sexy topics that everybody's talking about? All these hot, sexy, trendy, popular flavor of the day, week, month, and year subjects, they have nothing to do with what's really going on, which is the haves versus the have-nots. Who is committing all the most heinous crimes? The haves. Who are the ones getting targeted the most and neglected the most? The have-nots. And then, like I said, whenever this comes up, instantaneously force inject like a mandated mRNA vax race. That, oh, it's the Jews that are the haves. It's the blacks that are the have-nots. It's all, don't you understand? And so you might be constantly like wondering, why would Angry Hobo talk about all of this stuff? He just sounds crazy. I'm going to go listen to somebody that's popular that isn't talking about the housed and the unhoused and homelessness and all this stuff. Yeah, and like I say, go away. Get away from me. Because I want quality subscribers, not quantity. So stay the fuck away from me. Unless you understand that that's what really this is all. This whole war is the haves versus the have-nots. And all media is neglecting this story, and that the haves versus the have-nots story is completely neglected. And whenever it even gets like anywhere near the subject of the haves versus the have-nots, it always goes straight to attacking the have-nots, of how the have-nots are all a bunch of losers. And look at these wonderful haves people, the middle class, the haves, the middle class. Like, dude, so anyways, I don't have time for this shit. I have to leave in fucking 9 minutes, so fuck off.